Rapport is important. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not going to be friends with my students. No way. Hi, Richard here from Learn, Implement, Share. So this video is about rapport and a few little stories and a few little tips about maintaining rapport with a class of students, or at least what to do to not lose rapport. And that introduction, I'm not going to be friends with my students, I mention that because I hope it's not so common today, but 20 years ago that was quite a common belief of teachers. There was a confusion between rapport and being friends with students, and they're completely different things. So rapport is about being relatable to students, where students know that you like them, you're a little bit more relaxed with them perhaps, but there's still a professionalism and they have your respect. Whereas being friends with students is a whole other thing. You have no respect if you are behaving in a way that sort of insinuates that you're happy to be kind of a friend with the students. And this is particularly tricky with new teachers. I think every new teacher goes through this. I certainly did. And what some students do is relate to you in a way that implies that they're seeing you as kind of one of their equals. Now, I know it's important, I've mentioned this before, it's important to communicate in a way that it's human to human, but a teacher has a different role to a student, and you need to kind of communicate that. So I'm not talking about speaking down to them, I'm talking about speaking to them professionally, but in a way that has rapport, but it's not going down to their level and being a student. It's kind of hard to articulate, but you know when you are caught in that trap. First of all, before we get into rapport, here are a few tips to avoid getting in that awkward situation where you're being perceived as a friend of the kids, or you're acting in a way that's sort of inviting this kind of friendship relationship. So, these are don'ts. Do not do these things, right? Do not share your personal life with students, either collectively or individually. It's a huge no-no. There's no need for it. And again, I hope this doesn't happen these days. Certainly back in the 80s, there were situations where this happened, and it's more in a country town type situation. I was in my 5th or 6th year teaching, and there was a younger teacher, and I heard him kind of bragging that he had some year 10 girls at his party on the weekend. And I'm just going, oh my God, no. Now, very few teachers do that, but that's just a massive no-no. So you just don't invite them to any kind of social situations of any kind, or it's just obviously a no-no. But I thought I'd drop that in because it has happened in the past. And as I said before, don't allow students to talk to you with the same kind of demeanour as if you were their friend. And it's very difficult. When that happens, if you're a beginning teacher, you just don't know how to handle it. Like, what do you say? And here's a really good strategy to handle that. And it goes like this. Tom, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm the teacher and you're the student. And there's a line on the ground between us. You just stepped over that line. I've used that a number of times, and the kids always know exactly what you're talking about, and yet you don't need to explain yourself. And it's not a telling off. It's just say, hey, there's a line on the ground between us. I'm the teacher, you're the student, remember? You just crossed over it. Get back on your side, please. And they get it. So it's a really good technique to handle that uncomfortable situation. Now I'm going to give you some examples of behaving in a way that helps to build rapport with students, mainly en masse, in a class. First of all, you need to be relatable. This is difficult for a new teacher, perhaps. You need to find a way that is relatable with students, that still maintains your authority, but it's not like the cardboard cutout. It's not like you're a teacher robot. You need to find a personality style that is in sync with who you are, but is also suitable for being a teacher. So, hard to be more specific than that, but don't be a cardboard cutout. Be quirky. Some teachers go out of their way, maths teachers in particular, they wear really daggy t-shirts, or they deliberately say daggy things, and the kids go, oh, you're so daggy, sir. And it really works. But whatever works for you. Now, here's another thing that is really good to use when appropriate, and that is to apologise. Story. There's one time, fairly late in my career, I was with this class, the lesson wasn't going well, it went south, and I chewed them out. Blamed the students for the misbehaviour, and yet the whole time I knew this was my fault. I hadn't planned the lesson properly, I hadn't planned the transitions that were going on, and it just didn't work. And so I chewed them out. And then I left the lesson, I thought about it overnight, and I thought, gee, Richard, that was poor, because it was my fault that it went south. So what did I do? I went back the next lesson, I was up front, I said, hey guys, I just explained that this was as much my fault as it was yours, and I apologise for chewing them out, and hopefully you'll accept my apology and let's move on. And they were like, yeah, they're cool. But if you don't apologise, if you make a mistake like that and you don't apologise, then you've lost that little chunk of rapport. And you don't want to do that. You want to maintain the rapport. Now this next example is more about just being transparent generally, but I was in a maths lesson, I was doing this fairly complicated problem, working it through, and I got stuck, I had a brain freeze, it wasn't working, and rather than kind of pretending that I was right, I just turned to them and said, look guys, brain freeze, I got no idea what's going on here, I guarantee 5 minutes after this lesson I'll be fine. Can we just pause this, I'll get back to you next lesson and it'll be fine. And they go, yeah, sure. And that's what I call being transparent. Now, some teachers aren't comfortable about being like that. It really does help to elevate yourself as in terms of respect, because the kids see that you're real, you're not trying to pretend that you're something that you're not, and that you're human, you're fallible. So to be transparent is really important. Another little story, I was at a school where we were meant to line up in 2 straight lines. So it's going to be 2 straight lines and we come in orderly and blah, 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 blah. And so I was asking for the 2 lines, and it was sort of late in the day, and it wasn't really happening. I thought, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to chew them out? Like, what a great way to start a lesson. So after saying, come on, 2 straight lines, I said, right, everyone stop. I want 1 bunch. Get it? 1 bunch. 1 bunch, move in, please. 1 bunch. And they all kind of giggled and laughed and moved in, and the lesson was fine. I just made a point of making it clear that I knew that they weren't kind of lining up. I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. Let's get through this in a bit of a quirky way. And so sometimes it's appropriate just to lighten up a little bit. And my last little story, this goes way back in my first teaching stint. There was the infamous 9E class. You can kind of guess, A, B, C, D, E. They were the bottom year 9 class. I loved them. They were great kids. I got on really well with them, and they knew that I loved them. And I used to tell them, you're my favourite class. But so many other teachers just railed against 9E. They would talk about it at lunchtime. Oh, I had 9E before. Oh, God, so-and-so, it gets up my nose and this and that. And so it was very obvious to this class which teachers hated them and which teachers loved them. There was a couple of teachers that really loved them. And it was a classic case of a class who just responded according to the teacher's attitude towards them. So look, if you've got a class that's a bit tough, you need to work on how can you get it across to those students that you do really like them. So you've got to look at the students, not the behaviour. So that was that little story. So there you go. Rapport's important. There's a couple of little examples of stories from my background that relate to the whole rapport thing. Hopefully you got something out of that, and you can take away and implement in your own teaching, or at least have a think about what you're doing. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.